It is one of South Dakota's most infamous child murder cases. The mother who brutally killed her 3-year-old daughter in 1987 and then denied it for years has been granted parole.
Welcome back to Mysterious Hook. In this video, we will take you through the stories of grotesque killings in the United States of America, where you would be forced to ask questions about human nature. After all, what in the world could drive a mother to kill her child, if not pure evil? These are the 5 heartbreaking stories where children fell victim to the selfish intentions of someone who was supposed to protect them from the entire world, their mothers. Without further ado, let's walk right into the mystery. On the morning of June 20th, 2001, a disturbing 911 call from the normally quiet area of Houston, Texas.
What's your name? Yates. What's the problem? I just need him to come. Is your husband there? No. Well, what's the problem? I need him to come. I need to know why we're coming, ma'am. Is he there standing next to you? She? Are you having a disturbance? Are you ill or what? Yes, I'm ill. You need an ambulance? No, I need a police officer. Well, send an ambulance.
This is Andrea Yates, a 37-year-old woman who is living in the Houston suburb of Clear Lake City with her husband Rusty Yates and their 5 children. It was a happy family, a successful dad who worked for NASA, a loving mom, and 5 healthy children living the American dream. Andrea and Rusty met when they were both 25 years old and married on April 17, 1993. The children soon followed and they moved to Florida. In 1997, they returned to Houston and started living in a trailer. The following year, they purchased a 350-square-foot renovated bus, which became their permanent home. When police reached the Yates' home after the troubling 911 call, they witnessed something unthinkable. Something that deeply stunned the whole nation. Rusty came home to find a horrific scene. All of their 5 children had died. Noah was 7, John was 5, Paul was 3, Luke was 2, and Mary was 6 months old, and all of them drowned at the hands of their mother. Inside the house, police found a wet sock in the hallway, and the body of one of Yates' children face down in the bathtub. The other 4 bodies were laid on a bed and covered with a sheet. Andrea confessed to the murders almost immediately. It didn't take long for the story to spread. Reporters and press began swarming the area while police took Andrea to the police station for questioning. A mother killing her 1 child, let alone 5, was unthinkable. But how did it all begin? Andrea always had been a caring mother to her children, that is, until the birth of her 4th son, Luke. She became very depressed after delivery and showed acute postpartum depression. On June 16, 1999, Rusty found Andrea chewing on her fingers. The very next day, she tried to commit suicide by overdosing on pills. She was admitted to the hospital, and upon discharge, she was prescribed antidepressants. For the sake of her health, Rusty moved the family to a small house. Again in 1999, Andrea had a nervous breakdown, which culminated in 2 suicide attempts and 2 hospitalizations. She was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. The psychiatrist she was seeing at the time urged Andrea and Rusty to not have any more children and administered an antidepressant, Haldol. The medication worked well and Andrea was stabilized for some time. But the couple did not pay heed to the psychiatrist's suggestion, and only after 7 weeks, Andrea conceived their 5th child, Mary. Mary was born on November 30th, 2000. Although Andrea stopped taking her medication way before that, she seemed to be coping well. That was until 3 months after Mary's birth when Andrea's father died, and her health started to deteriorate. She stopped feeding her children properly. She read the Bible feverishly, and even harmed herself. Her condition became so bad that she needed hospitalization. On the fateful day of June 20th, 2001, when Rusty left for work, Andrea was left alone to watch the children. Rusty's mother was supposed to arrive there after 1 hour. Within that period, she took all of her children to the bathtub, one after the other, and drowned them. In the interrogation by the police, Andrea never denied killing her children. When asked about the reason for her actions, she claimed that Satan made her do it. While in jail, she also said that she considered killing her children for 2 years before finally doing it. She was charged with 2 counts of capital murder. In February 2002, Andrea's trial began. Andrea's defense claimed that she was insane during the time of this act, but prosecutors argued that the fact that she waited for Rusty to leave for work, as she knew he would stop her, proved that she was sane enough to plan the crime. On March 15, 2002, Andrea was sentenced to life in prison for her crimes. However, her attorneys appealed the conviction, and finally, on June 26, 2006, her second trial began. Exactly a month later, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity and ordered to stay in a mental facility. As of 2022, various sources report that she has offered annual hearings to check her eligibility for her release from Kerrville State Hospital. On December 20th, 1985, around 1:15 a.m., Cynthia Walker received a frantic call from her neighbor Marybeth Tinning in the quiet neighborhood of Schenectady County, New York. Something was wrong with Marybeth's 4-month-old daughter, Tammy Lynn. Cynthia met a pregnant Marybeth that summer of 1985 when she was also expecting. Marybeth and her husband Joe recently moved into the neighborhood and lived in a duplex across the street from Cynthia and her family. The two women became close friends quickly, and their pregnancy played a big part in that. Cynthia even trusted Marybeth to babysit her 5-year-old son, while Marybeth shared her story of how she lost a couple of children due to illnesses or accidents. Their friendship grew closer after both women delivered healthy babies. Cynthia was a licensed nurse and acted like one by rushing to her neighbor's house to help the baby girl. When she entered the living room in Marybeth's house, she found poor Tammy Lynn on the changing table, purplish blue and unresponsive. Cynthia immediately started administering CPR, while Marybeth paced back and forth repeatedly, claiming that she had found her daughter that way. Joe Tinning stood back a few feet away from them, silently shaking his head. The behavior looked suspicious, considering Marybeth had experience working as a nurse's aide, but still did not try to give CPR to her daughter. When Tammy Lynn was taken to the hospital, it was too late. The doctors and nurses were devastated, and not just because a precious little life was lost, but they all knew Tammy Lynn. She was born in the maternity ward of the very same hospital. In fact, doctors knew all about the story of Marybeth finding her child not breathing, because they had heard it all before. And not once, but many times. It all began when Marybeth's daughter, Jennifer Tinning, suffered from a hemorrhagic meningitis and brain abscesses in the womb, which unfortunately led to her death just a week after her birth. Marybeth later admitted that she willingly inserted a sharp object into her uterus to induce early labor, so that the baby would be born on Christmas. She probably introduced the infection in the process, causing Jennifer to pass away only after 8 days on January 3, 1972. However, the string of death never seemed to stop. Only 17 days after Jennifer's passing, Marybeth rushed her 2-year-old son, Joseph Jr., to the emergency room. She said that Joseph had choked on his vomit and suffered a seizure. The doctors discharged him on January 20th, 1972, after observing him for 3 days when they could not find anything wrong, only for Marybeth to bring him unconscious 2 hours later. He was dead on arrival. Since doctors could not find the cause of seizures and Marybeth was the only witness of the seizures, they recorded the cause of death as cardiopulmonary arrest. On March 1st of that same year, the eldest of Tinning's children, Barbara, would be brought to the hospital on March 1st due to convulsions that doctors believed were caused by Reye's syndrome. It is an extremely rare brain disease and only occurs in less than 1 in a million children each year. Although doctors had their suspicions about the cause of convulsions, they decided to not bother the grieving mother. Yet death struck the Tinning family once again, as Marybeth's infant son Timothy was born on November 22, 1973. But almost a month later, on December 10th, Marybeth said she found him dead in his crib. But even this time, no proper investigation was done, and doctors figured that the cause of death was sudden infant death syndrome. At this point, it seemed that the death of the young children ran as a curse in the Tinning family. While everyone felt sorry for the poor mother who lost many children, some people were a bit suspicious about Marybeth's nonchalant behavior after their deaths. But upon asking why she kept conceiving children, Marybeth always replied that it was what women are supposed to do. In 1974, Joe Tinning, Marybeth's husband, suspected that his food was tasting bitter. His family was suspicious of Marybeth and urged him to get tested, but he refused. When finally he was admitted to the hospital, doctors found a nearly fatal dose of barbiturates in his system. It was later discovered that Marybeth had stolen medicine from his nephew and mixed the entire bottle into his food. Surprisingly, Joseph did not press charges and Marybeth was never confronted. Marybeth gave birth to another son, Nathan, on March 30th, 1975. He was only 5 months old when he was taken to the emergency room. Marybeth said that she saw the boy gurgling and turning blue while she was driving the car. As that was a different hospital, they were unaware of their family history. After the autopsy, the death was attributed to acute pulmonary edema. After this, the Tinning family settled down for a bit and adopted a 2-year-old, Michael, in 1978, apparently to stop the family curse. Joseph and Marybeth had another biological child, Mary Frances, on October 29, 1978, and for a while, everything looked good. However, in January of the following year, Marybeth brought her to the hospital, saying that she had a seizure. The doctors were able to save little Mary, but that did not save her from her fate. A month later, Marybeth returned with Mary in full cardiac arrest. She survived that too, but left with irreversible brain damage, which caused her to die after 2 days when life support was taken off. After Mary's burial in the fall of 1979, Jonathan was born, but in the same circle of life, he also died in March, after being kept on life support for 4 weeks. Even then, doctors could not find the exact cause of his death, and believed that it was the mysterious family genetics of the Tinning family that led the children to death. But long-suspected belief that the deaths originated from genetics was discarded when their adopted son Michael fell down the staircase. On March 2nd, he died after having a concussion. So finally, when Tammy Lynn died, Child Protective Services were called, and Marybeth was arrested for second-degree murder. Her trial began on June 22, 1987, at Schenectady County Court. It was revealed that she admitted to her husband after police interrogation that she killed Tammy. Marybeth received a sentence of 20 years to life in prison and was imprisoned at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women. She was denied parole 6 times until finally being paroled on August 21, 2018, after serving 31 years behind bars. In the early morning hours of October 27, 1994, a terrified young woman reached the San Jacinto police station in California. This was 34-year-old Dora Luz Buenrostro, who frantically told the police how her estranged husband, Alejandro Buenrostro, had showed up to her apartment armed with knives. Fearing for her 3 young children who were asleep in their bed, Dora went to the police to seek help. Officers immediately rushed to Dora's apartment to apprehend Alejandro, but he was not seen anywhere. But after arriving at the scene, police discovered the 2 gruesome dead bodies of Dora's little children, 9-year-old daughter Susanna and 8-year-old son Vincente. They both had been stabbed in the neck as they slept in the living room. However, the concerning fact was that Dora's youngest daughter, 4-year-old Debra, was missing from the apartment. Nobody knew if she saw the same fate as her sisters or if Alejandro had abducted her. Officers began searching for Debra and Alejandro, fearing the worst had already happened to the young girl. Dora and Alejandro did not have a good marriage. They fought all the time, disagreeing with one another and everything. They quarreled so much that Alejandro lived in Los Angeles, while Dora lived in San Jacinto with her 3 young children. Dora claimed that he often threatened her with her children's lives. Officers put an APB out for Alejandro, which led police to him pretty soon. At the time, he was at his work and brought to the police station without incident. However, Debra was still nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, when authorities were questioning Alejandro, a teenage girl heard a rumor from the student she was babysitting about an abandoned body being left at a post office nearby. When it was reported to the authorities, officers suspected it could be Debra. In the post office, which was in Lake House, 10 miles away from Dora's home, they found a little girl's body strapped in a car seat. Sure enough, the body was identified as Debra Buenrostro. She had been stabbed with a knife as well with a ballpoint pen. Alejandro was released that evening after providing a strong alibi that he was not present in San Jacinto during the time of the murder. With Alejandro's story checked out, police focused their sight on Dora. When she was brought in for questioning, she was exhibiting strange behavior, unlike a mother whose children were tragically murdered in their sleep. She talked about being tired, laughed, and even joked during the interrogation. Besides, the police found many inconsistencies in her story. Even the neighbors did not have many good words to say about Dora. One of the neighbors said that Dora is neither a good friend nor a good mother. Dora often locked her children outside as punishment, and on many such occasions the neighbor would let them use her bathroom. Pretty soon, Dora became the #1 suspect in this case. Her story had one major flaw. Investigators believe that Debra was killed 2 days before. On October 29, 1994, Dora was arrested for the murders of her 3 children. The trial began 13 months after the ill-fated incident. In November 1995, a jury found Dora competent to stand trial, even though her defense was claiming otherwise. It was determined that Dora was trying to frame her husband by killing her children. After deliberating for a mere 90 minutes, the jury found Dora guilty. Due to an evident lack of remorse, 38-year-old Dora was sentenced to death on October 2, 1998. In December of 2018, Dora's death penalty was reversed, but the conviction still stands. It should have been a happy Sunday morning on April 5, 1987, in the Jenner family home of Huron, South Dakota. Instead, shortly before 9 a.m., Lynn Jenner found their 3-year-old daughter lying still in bed, blood covering her face and organs coming out of her mouth. He screamed in horror, causing his wife Debra Jenner Tyler to come over from the master bedroom, which was only 20 feet away. As Lynn stood frozen, witnessing the horrific scene, Debra reached over to the edge of Abby's bed and touched her. Abby's skin was cold, eyes were dilated, and hands were in a defensive pose, holding a clump of hair, possibly her killer's. Debra called 911 to report the crime. Huron police officers reached the scene moments after the ambulance arrived at the Jenner home. The ambulance crew saw several cuts on Abby's body while they were carrying it out to the van. Later, autopsy results showed there were 70 stab wounds on Abby's body, among which some wounds were caused by a sharp-edged blade, while other ones were caused by a dull object. Defensive wounds were also present on Abby's hands, indicating that she tried to ward off the assailant. The time of Abby's death was determined as the early morning hours of April 5, 1987. At the crime scene, everything was bloodstained. It was on the headboard of Abby's bed, on the mattress, on the wall behind the bed, on a wall-mounted light switch in Abby's room, on the bathroom floor, and on a telephone near the kitchen. A bloody knife was also found in a silverware tray above the microwave oven near the kitchen sink. A toy airplane was also found in the sink, and blood was on it. However, no fingerprints were found there. Investigators also did not find any sign of forced entry, and the windows and doors were all locked. All evidence pointed toward the assailant not being an outsider. When police cleared Lynn as a suspect very early on in the investigation, they were suspicious of Debra. Her demeanor was very calm, composed, and strange, beyond the behavior of a grieving mother. Without any solid lead to proceed, investigators told Debra to take a polygraph test, which she agreed to. The results showed that she had been deceptive during the test. When asked if she killed Abby, she said she doesn't remember. But she also added, "I didn't do it, but I could have psyched out during the night." The evidence was enough for Debra to face charges, but there was one final nail in the coffin: the hair that was found in Abby's hand. It was her assailant's, which turned out to be Debra's. the one person who was supposed to keep her out of harm's way. Yet she did the unthinkable. Debra's trial lasted from February 24, 1988 to March 15, 1988. It was revealed in the trial that Debra switched between a kitchen knife and a toy airplane model while brutally stabbing her 70 times. The defense tried to present Debra's unstable mental condition as a reason for her strange behavior, while she pleaded not guilty to the crime. Yet jurors found her guilty of the murder of her daughter and sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2003, Governor Bill Janklow commuted her sentence from life to 100 years. When she admitted her guilt after denying it for 16 years, making her eligible for parole. After being rejected numerous times, in September 2021, Debra Jenner was finally granted parole. In the early morning hours of February 10, 1992, the fire department received a call from Seneca Street in Boise, Idaho. A house was reported to be on fire, and the residents were believed to be trapped inside. It was a home shared by a couple, Randy Rowe and Robin Rowe, and their 2 children, Joshua and Tabitha. When firefighters reached there minutes after, the fire was out of control. As they desperately tried to bring the first-floor blaze under control, rescue workers made their way between flames and thick smoke to the second floor to see if anyone was trapped there. In a bedroom, they discovered Randy Rowe lying motionless. Tabitha was found soon, a few feet away on the floor in the same condition. In another bedroom, they found Joshua, as he too wasn't breathing. They were immediately carried outside for treatment, but despite the efforts, all 3 of them were pronounced dead at the scene. However, the children's mother and Randy's wife Robin Rowe was nowhere to be found. Just then, 2 women arrived on the scene. One of them identified herself as Robin Rowe, and the other one was Joan McHugh, Robin's friend. Now, while the emergency workers escorted the visibly shaken Robin away from the house, Joan told investigators that her friend had fallen asleep in her house earlier that evening. She also added that Robin had awakened her, saying that she had a bad feeling about her home. On the way, as soon as Robin saw the emergency vehicles, she told Joan that there had been a fire in her home even before any smoke or flames was visible. After the bodies were sent to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy, officers started looking for clues to find out how the fire had started. Almost instantly, a strange discovery was made. The circuit breaker that controls the power of the smoke alarm, which was installed in the family home, was shut off, and the furnace fan was set to run continuously, feeding the flames and circulating smoke quickly through the home. Although the investigators were suspicious about the situation, finding the exact cause of the fire was not easy to discover due to the extensive amount of damage. On the other hand, an immediate autopsy revealed the cause of death for all 3 victims was smoke inhalation. As the investigation continued through the night, detectives found a flammable substance on the first floor that slowly burned before igniting a much hotter petroleum product, all pointing towards arson, suggesting the fatal fire had been set intentionally. Just like any other case, police looked at the spouse for answers. During interrogation, when asked why she was not at home that night, Robin claimed that she was staying at her friend's house at the time. She also said that for the past few months, her marriage with Randy had been rocky. He was being abusive towards her, even hitting her in front of the children. It was Randy who could have intentionally set the fire to punish her, she believed. However, investigators had their doubts. They did not believe her and had enough reason for doing so. Upon digging into her past, it was found that Robin's 2 other children had died under mysterious circumstances. And that's not all. While searching in a storage unit, police found evidence that she had embezzled money from the YWCA, her workplace. Moreover, they also found many insurance policies taken out on the lives of Randy, Joshua, and Tabitha that totaled over $275,000. The last one was taken just a few weeks before the fire incident. Robin was the sole beneficiary of all of them. It soon came to light that the claims of Randy's abuse were neither partly or entirely fabricated. In reality, it was Robin who wanted out, starting a sexual relationship with her friend Joan's adult son, John Blackwell, shortly before the fire. Though police could not yet apprehend Robin on the charges of murder, she was arrested on February 13, 1992, and charged with grand theft for stealing from the YWCA. She remained incarcerated due to being unable to post the bond. Detectives approached Joan after watching her regular conversation with Robin. She agreed to help the detectives and proceeded to secretly record her conversation with Robin. On March 18, 1992, Joan confronted Robin about the time she came downstairs on the night of the fire, but could not find Robin sleeping. It was a lie suggested by the detectives to have some kind of confession from Robin. Nevertheless, the strategy worked, as when asked where she went out that night, she replied that she could not remember. Another time, while answering the same question, Robin said she went out to meet her psychiatrist, but never revealed who that was. The conversation ceased when Joan told her that she was working with the detectives all along. At this point, detectives finally believed they had enough evidence to charge her. So, on March 23, 1992, she was arrested on the charge of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of aggravated arson. After her trial ended in March 1993, the jury returned with a verdict of guilty on all charges. On December 13, 1993, she was sentenced to death for the murders and 20 years for the arson. These senseless murders were not supposed to happen, as those beautiful children were not supposed to suffer in this way, and their mothers were not supposed to be the monsters they were. So what do you think made these women do what they did? Is it mental illness or just pure evil? Do they deserve forgiveness, or should they never walk free again? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. And thank you for joining us in today's video. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more episodes like these.